to the fullest, cause you never ever know when it's your time to go. So I'm a ball out of control, but play it smart. Get my grind on, even if I gotta push cards. Gotta crawl before you walk before you run. If you want a nice life, you gotta work to get one. See me grip on the strip in the new.
I got a wrap up question real quick. I know y'all been on here. This has been great. I know I let Sean facilitate that part, but I do want to kind of like summarize everything by having you all place yourself in a superintendent role. And so I kind of want you to think outside the box, put yourself in the superintendent role. Go back to the last school year when COVID hit, even over the summer, and then this part of the semester. What things have you learned from COVID thus far that you would change as a superintendent going in, and what things would you keep? So kind of like your strategic plan, but choose the main areas that you will prioritize, and areas that you would keep, that you learned that were good this past school year, and areas that you would grow in. So again, superintendent role, you find out, hey, you got to come up with this plan, rolling out COVID based on what we already know from this past school year. Like, what things would you prioritize in your strategic plan, and what things would you use from this past school year, and what things would you change?
Well, some of the things I would
Superintendent role. Superintendent role.
Huh?
Superintendent role now. You're a superintendent. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think one of the things is just I think obviously us getting into the situation we're in now has been challenging, but I also think it's shown that you can do a lot of different methods of delivery of instruction. As far as opening up your virtual. If normal years we would have, like, you got to have a certain GPA and things like that to be virtual. But now I also think the mental health capacity of it. Like, we have some kids, some kids actually struggle in school with like behavior issues and things like that, but the academic is not an issue, if you follow me. So I think just opening it up more virtual. I think we found that we can do meetings virtual, like we do this. So if I meet with my principals and stuff like that in the district, I can do that virtually. So I think now instructional wise, standard wise, obviously for myself as a superintendent, I like to have it face to face, because obviously we see in some cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, the content, academic part of it is an issue for some kids online. But for the kids who can handle it online, we can let them process that online. But I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot of good that we learn from it, that we can do virtual as far as hosting meetings, and then the kids who can handle it virtually, let them do it virtually, and then the other kids can do it traditional way. But that's some of the things I got from it, from what I'm seeing as far as since March up to this point. So
I'll just add to what Fred said. I like the staggered approach. So like, that's something I would, they did it in charter schools. In charter school I was at, whenever the beginning of the school year, they would create a staggered schedule where X amount of X grades would come to school, and cohorts would come to school. So I think one thing I would take away after COVID is the staggered approach to coming back to school. I think it.
The other thing I wanted to say was, I also would like, through this whole process, instead of doing a 5-day week, I would cut down and do a 4-day week, and do it a Monday through Thursday, or a a Tuesday through Friday. Basically, you have that Friday off or that Monday off, and do it that way. And you can make one of those days a virtual day or what however you want to do it. But I will have a 4-day school week through that, and we can do a traditional 4-day school week. But if I need to change the times up from 9 to 5 or whatever, I would do that. That way the students have that time off, like I said, and that way they can do, because you're gonna do the sports part. We shown that we're gonna do the sports part regardless.
Right.
With the pandemic. So we shown we're gonna do that. So, you can still have your game day on Thursday night or Friday, however you want to do it. Nothing changes on that part. It's just that student will have that time off at home at Friday or that Monday. That would be that process, and then like in the lunchroom, we staggered our lunch times where we have a small percentage of kids eating lunch. I think personally for myself, I would like to keep that the same, because all the germs and everything else that happen during that time frame when you have 300 kids at lunch, I would probably say a 50% rate where you have 3 different lunches and 50% eat lunch in the lunchroom, and then you have the other 50% eating inside the classroom. I think just things like that can help out. That's just my personal opinion. Not everybody would agree with that, but those are some things that I've seen. And I also, like I said, I tell some people I think some of this social distancing process that we follow in this is actually good. Common sense tells you to wash your hands, after that. So you should have been doing that anyway. But then just, when you go to restaurants, how sometimes before you would go to restaurants and everybody been boarded on top of each other. I think to have space and things like that, I think that's actually a good thing. So so some of this stuff is learned stuff that should be in effect for years to come, to be honest with you.
KD, Chad, superintendent role. What are the takeaways from this past school year that you would take on and build on? Which ones would you get rid of? Say that didn't work, that was terrible. And your priorities, what would you focus on? What would your priorities be? KD, Chad.
You want to go, Chad? Oh,
I can. I think first off, when you as a role of a superintendent, I feel that sometimes people get a little bit confused with just the role in general, because you assume this person's at the top, but really and truly they're not from my perspective, because you're answering to boards, you're answering to the state. So it's certain things that they may want to push for, but don't have the backing to actually execute. So I think it's simply like you play a lot of politics in that, because especially in this area, because you have the big three, and you're trying to be similar, not too different, and trying to be respectful of each other. So I think it's a fine line you have to walk in order to not upset the balance, and not go rogue, I guess you can say. But if I had this simply true control, the first thing that I would establish back in March was having a teacher coalition where I had PLC processes across the county come together to, because I know right now individually we do our PLC process through our schools. So I would have had a guiding coalition, which we kind of did to help kind of guide the process of what essential standards across the county would be our focus. Because and therefore it kind of takes some of the load off the teacher to say, hey,
Hold on, and make teachers a part of that conversation.
yes, actually have them lead the conversation, because they are the experts. My degree isn't what it's in, but they have true ownership and has to have a live document that say, hey, these are our essentials. This is going to be our focus. Therefore, I think we could have shared a lot more across the county, even the systems.
So better communication.
Because if you want to preach PLCs and working together, the worst thing you do is not work together, right? So at least having those people on the Zoom to kind of get, even if you don't listen all the way, give them their voice so that they can provide, because they are in the trenches. Even when it comes to the rules and regulations from the CDC, as far as like how our classroom be structured, how we go to lunch, transitions, how that will look. I felt like, and I'm not for sure if it happened or not, to be honest, in my system, but have them at the table so that they can provide their perspectives, their fears, because when it comes to communication, a part of the issue right now is the fact that we tell them things, but we're not having a conversation about the things that we're telling them. And therefore, you kind of feel like you out of the loop a little bit. So if I think if you involve them more, you give them a little more ownership. It's like when we have our kids make the rules of the classroom. If we involve the kids in constructing the rules, although we have the five in our head that we want, but we get a little bit of ownership, we can hold them more accountable for breaking that rule because they had ownership in developing that rule. So when it comes to the whole procedures, the teaching of standards, how we're going to do remote learning, I felt that if they were at the table to provide some perspective and some guidance based upon what they seen work, like even like getting websites together, utilizing Zoom versus Google Meet, some of those things so that they would have had an active voice, I felt that make them feel a lot better as far as going forward. Um, when it comes to social distancing, I would have stuck with remote learning as far as well hybrid learning because it potentially cuts that population in half. And although it may not be ideal for everyone, if we would have presented this not March, but maybe by the end of the school year, got our minds to thinking that hey, this really may go on past the summer because we listen to people in politics. We think what it's gonna go, and we people really were thinking that the heat was gonna drive it away. It's certain things that we simply the unknown that we did not know, but we really should have had a plan in place no matter what happened. And I thought that's what Canvas was for. When we started looking at Canvas, if something ever happened, but I feel that it exposed us. We had all these talking points of, hey, if this ever happens, we got to go, or we can't come to school. We can still get kind of present for attendance. We have this platform to teach from. We done that, but we didn't really use it like we're supposed to. So now we're back in this curve. We're trying to relearn it to actually utilize it for good. And then you kind of saw some of our skeletons based upon that we were not really proficiently trained in certain things. So it's simply having a deep conversation with teachers about, hey, this is how we're going. What can we do going forward to involve them in conversation? Number one. Then I will also include parents. You got that they have to have a voice and not simply send out a survey saying, "Are you gonna send your kid to school or not?" You're gonna have to get some perspectives of simply where they're at when it comes to like technology usage. Are they proficient? Some type of program for those parents who are not proficient, like you said, some type of tutoring for the kids who need that extra guidance. When it comes to be a remote learner, some type of contract, some stipulation to say, hey, I'm going to check this box to make this choice, but I am also signing up to be this teacher assistant, checking my kids' agenda, making sure they're on track with things. If I have a problem, emailing teachers, not waiting until it's too late. So putting the parents under some type of contract to say, hey, I'm signing up for them to be remote, but I am going to follow through to make sure that they are being successful because everything cannot come from the school because we can't help what we don't know. We can't go into your household and take over your computer screen and make your kids do work because really and truly you are taking ownership and saying, you know what, I'm making this choice for my kid because I am the parent and I am going to own the fact that I am truly 50% of this relationship. And I'm going to make sure my kids get what they need from the education. And I can't simply assume they are doing what they're supposed to do without my knowledge. So being an overbearing helicopter parent is really what you sign up to be if you want your kids to be successful during a pandemic, utilizing technology. Because, like I said, we always assume that kids simply know it because they have a phone, they can do video, they can play Fortnite or whatever, but they're not proficient when it comes to the actual academic side of that structure. So involving the parents, involving the teachers, and then setting forth a plan. And once we actually have a plan in place, utilizing the plan like it's written. Not if you're gonna make an amendment to the plan, you bring those stakeholders back to the table to have a conversation about the amendments. Therefore, it doesn't look like I'm hiding something. If you get more information, you share more information. If you don't know, you point blank say, you know what, we don't have an answer to that, but that's something that we're working on. Because the worst thing it is, when you tell someone something, and you have to go back on what you said because, oh, someone changed that. No, really and truly, you didn't know in the first place. You simply did what you thought was best. But if that's communicated, I think parents will trust the process a lot more and say, you know what, I actually can get behind you and I will follow through and I will do my part. So the main thing is communication. From you got to communicate and you got to involve people in order to have a proficient plan. Because like, again, a lot of us have been out of the classroom for a little while, and when you outside, it's like when you first got out of school, you have this fantasy of what it should look like. Unless you're actually in the trenches, you don't really know what it looks like. I can make a plan for you. If I went to Huntsville City, I wouldn't know anything about how y'all do, how the process works there, because my mindset is set where I am. So you have to know a little bit about what's going on in that area and not be on the pedestal of, hey, I'm making all the decisions, but I don't know about what's in the trenches. So I think I'm doing what's best for everybody, but you're only reaching a few people because you have not involved a population of people that can actually help, because we're trusting these people to our students, right? So they are the experts. So why not give the experts the reins to move forward? It's like the vaccine. All the people doing all the lip work, the lip service, if we were in there trying to make a vaccine, we would never have one. We know the talking points, but you need an actual scientist with the knowledge of a virus and how it works and how it will affect the body in order for you to have a successful vaccine. So you got to use the people that are actually the experts in order to formulate your decision in order to positively affect everybody. And you know, that's just a part of it. I'm sorry I went on too long.
KB, take us on,
Yes, sir.
brother.
All
Take
right.
us on.
So I've had the pleasure to work in 3 different school districts, and the first thing that I would focus on, which is what they have, is the demographics. You may have a town where the entire community works at a certain factor. Okay, so if those parents are not able to work in that factory, their kids can't go to school. So they have to depend on that factor to survive in order for that city to survive. So, and I'm in a school system where we have multiple resources. So we're able to do multiple things. So the first thing I would look at is demographics. I couldn't go into one school system and say we're going virtual the entire semester. That means their parents have to be at home and they will lose their jobs. And then no one will be successful. But in another school system, we can say, okay, we're going virtual the entire time and we can sustain and be successful. So the first thing I would do is look at demographics, which is what we've done. And then from there, I would say, all right, can we go virtual? Can we go hybrid? Can we go traditional? So the next thing is if we can offer the opportunity for students to choose to go virtual or traditional, that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing now in our school system. Our students have the option to either go virtual, full-time, or traditional, either or. All right. Now, like I said, in other districts, based on the demographics, they may not be allowed to do that because there won't be a school system, because there won't be a city, because the parents have to work. Blue collar, they have to be there. So first, I focus on demographics and what resources we can offer. And going from March until now, it has helped me see who are the major players that are involved. And something that I've noticed is We've got teachers involved to be on the professional learning team, sped teachers, people at curriculum, and we got stakeholders from the community. So we got their input on what we should do. And that's how I would start it off. I would always focus on the demographics. What type of students do we have overall? And me working in 3 different districts, I think that has helped me a lot if I became a superintendent and if I was a superintendent here. And the things that the superintendent did in our school system now are the things that I would do following up till now. So now we have our own virtual academy. Next semester, we have our own principal, our own guidance counselor. So whichever students want to go there, they can go. They have their own principal. We have 2 high schools in the academy. So we have 4 different areas that a student could be successful in. But we have the demographic background to do that, which is a really good move by our superintendent. That was amazing. But of course, you had other people who were involved, which was the admin. We had say so. Stakeholders had say so. Parents did too as well. So that's how I would start off, which is something that we did really, really well with, and that's how it ended.
Cool. All sounds good. All sounds good.
That's a question, though.
Yeah.
I have a question. So, as leaders, fellas, when it comes down to, 'cause I hear in what you're saying, but when it came down to the choice of shutting down everything, and I hear about demographics and all that. So when we think about education versus safety, what does that play? What's your role in that? Like because at first, when I first started this year, I was very apprehensive about the beginning because of the unknowns, the stress of it. We have all these guidelines where we are being extra cautious, not eating, not going to restaurants, not doing all these things, and then we put our kids in a cesspool. And I say cesspool because we throw them in an environment where they don't have choices. And like a parent like myself, we're both working, so I didn't necessarily have a choice to keep my kid at home, because if I didn't go to be the educator, the kids won't be helped to get out. I have to quit. I couldn't work from home. So I guess I struggle with the safety versus the education part of things. And like I was not in an argument, but talking to someone, not one educator, unless you at that point of retirement and you hate your job, not one educator want to be a virtual educator. Because like Fred said earlier, we move mountains by being able to interact and formulate relationships one-on-one in the classroom with our students. But when it comes down to the safety versus the education, that's where I still have a little trouble, because I feel guilty when we quarantine 30, 40 kids, because we are putting them in this environment and we know the potential that could occur because they are interacting. We can say social distance, whatever, but when they go home, they can still have parties, they still going to prom, they still having dances. So as an educator, it's a struggle within versus education versus safety. And so what are y'all perspectives on that? Or did you agree with the shutdown in general?
You mean like the shutdown of the state, or just like what or just
The school district?
I'm thinking district right now. If the state did it again, how will we manage? It's a loaded question for me, because I sit here and I think about it often, especially when I'm at school, when I'm thinking about when we keep sending these kids. Like I have the same kids going home in the groups. You know what I'm saying? Every day, like miss the whole semester, not by choice, but because they keep getting within that group or within 6 feet of the person that is getting sick every time. So you have a group of kids that are constantly being sent home on quarantine. So it's like a loaded question of how do we got education versus safety. So we put these kids in an environment where they potentially are in harm's way because they have to come to school to get education.
See,
So
I mean, that's what I'm saying, Chad. Like to look at it, I have to look at it bigger than that because I think the only control I would have is just my mindset, my perspective, how I look at it. Just
mhm,
changing my mindset because again, I'd be in a position where I would have to go face to face if they said, "Hey, you're going to school." Again, that was the biggest issue. I think Fred talked about it before. Teachers not having a choice. So these decisions being made, and we not having a choice in it. You know, this is my health. This is my family member's health. You're putting it at risk, and I don't even have a choice in it. So I think that was the biggest thing, and I think to me that kind of proves my point of like I think even as Americans, we didn't sit down in it long enough. And I think another reason why we're paying for that now. I don't think we ever remember Chad, KD, we had that conversation in the beginning with COVID. I don't think we ever like sat down and said, okay, let's truly distance ourselves in quarantine. I'm talking about before the mask, just sitting down. And I know there's mental health issues. I know people have to work. So I think that was the biggest thing, not having that financial support. So there was another period, y'all, that we're forgetting about outside of education. So everything was just like a domino effect where people realized, oh, shoot, I have to work. Like there's no way, based on the policies or lack of policies, people felt, no, people didn't feel, people had to work. So I think because of that in itself, it created a domino effect like Fred talked about before. So we talking about social distance stuff and this and that, but we still got sports going on. So to me, it just tells me what is our priority, and not just in schools, but as a country. What are we prioritizing? I understand mental health. I know all these, physical violence that might be taken in the house with spouse support. It's not spouse support. I'm tripping. Domestic violence, domestic violence. But at the end of the day, the bigger,
Economics,
the big,
economics.
yeah, the bigger
It's
comment
money.
is money.
Son said economics. Yeah.
yeah.
That's it. That's what it boils down to. So we can only change certain things, whatever level you at. And again, what we're free to control is our mindset and how we look at something. I know cases where teachers they want to come to school. They wanted to. They got things going on at their home. Oldest child with their family back there. So I know teachers that said, "Hey, I need this. I need this interaction with my kids because I'm about to go crazy at home." So it's hard to say, like you all talked about before with perspectives. Everyone has their own perspective. I think at the end of the day, what's going to always prevails, like you said, economics, money, and that's a priority.
I just want to add, Chad, if, where everybody else, if you think about when this first happened back in March, let your minds just go back there for a moment. What was the first thing that you can think of that people did? Not even at the school level. I'm talking about looking at news. One of the things people did, I don't know if you recall, the stock market. They all took money out and they all did, they all jumped and did that because they knew it was falling down, going down, it was decreasing. Okay. And I said then, once we all got shut down and they closed school down, and I said, one of the things I said was sort of like you said, if money runs all this, and then it was like, okay, colleges they need to start, schools need to go back to get the money, colleges need to go back and get the money,
Mhm.
and then you go into football season, collegiate football, you know, it's all money, like this coming up weekend, this upcoming Saturday, you got the Big Four, Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they all gonna get money, they all gonna get paid.
Hmm.
But yet you still, you may have a small portion of fans there, but they're going to be in jeopardy. Like I went back and said, Duke, the basketball team, ladies basketball team, cancel their games. The NFL and the NBA, they get funds for playing on these networks.
Hmm.
Okay, so unfortunately, your safety is going to be at risk due to the money. That's just point blank. I mean, there's nowhere around it. So But what do I do through this process? One of the things I try to do is, like you said, wear a mask, sanitize your hands, wash your hands, social distance. And like you said, Chad, I had one parent that got upset because their kid was quarantined 3 or 4 times the first semester.
Mm.
And they knew it wasn't, of course it wasn't my fault. And I told them, hey, I'm sorry, you know, the thing is, as a parent, you know, you have a choice to make. Either you can let your kid go virtual or traditional. Unfortunately, like Chad said, in my case, my daughter goes to school with my wife because we both educators. So nobody's here to watch her do it virtual and make sure she's doing it correctly. Plus, she's in kindergarten, so there you go. So,
But can I piggyback off of that, Fred? You said something
Yeah.
again about choices. So
Yeah.
how ironic that,
You're on mute, brother.
my bad. So let me piggyback off of what Fred said about choices. And ironic that we give parents choices and kids choice, but didn't give teachers a choice for real in that matter.
well, we
Yes?
actually at our district we gave
contract we do.
Yeah.
at our district we gave our teachers a choice at the beginning to if they wanted to do land based
I got you. We did.
or a virtual or if it was any health issues that caused you to have to go virtual. So somewhat to begin with that was that was given out there to the teachers. But I mean, but like that question Chad presented, safety over education, sort of it's a combination of both. I mean, really, because I mean, as I tell parents all the time, we have some parents who did virtual and then we called them back in. They was like, well, I want them to come back. But I'm concerned about how the safety, and I tell them, I'll just be honest, and I tell them if I can't tell you stuff in good faith efforts and being honest with you, it's no use in me saying anything to you all. Now I tell them, now we are practicing the CDC guidelines. We have social distance in the hallway. We have them going up the stairs one way and going down another way. We have our lunch capacity at the 30%. We have all things intact. But would that keep your kid from getting the virus? No, it won't. And I'm honest. I mean, I can't. I mean, but what I am presenting to you is that we have the guidelines in place. Because once I say we got these guidelines in place, there's no way your kid gonna get the virus. Then the kid get the virus, then I'm at fault. Well, you told me your kid. So so you have to be honest and upfront with them. And so. And like I said, to me, it ultimately, for us collegiate wise, it's all about money. I mean, it's like I said, we you have some teams that are shut down. The experts are saying, telling you to shut it down, telling you to do this, but yet we have this. I mean, look at the college level. They have X amount of kids in dorms. They actually left at the Thanksgiving break, and if you look at the spring semesters, they shut down. They shut down a week, a time earlier. Well, they're not even giving the kids spring break. So most colleges are not allowing their kids out for spring break. They just end a semester at that point and let them go because they don't want them, to go out and then expose and come back. So everybody's doing some stuff to try to help out, but it's just like you said, safety versus education. It sort of goes simultaneously, really. You're doing both of them, but go ahead, Kerry.
Chad, so like you said, safety over education. I have a question for everybody that's on here. Did anybody go out of town for Christmas? Did anybody visit their families outside of their homes?
We didn't.
Man, no, where you at, man? Did you?
Yeah, I visited my parents and my sister.
All right, so I'm just being honest. So we talk about safety and education, but yet we're quick to go travel. We're quick to go out of town, and then we come back and put them in school, but it's our fault if they got to get sent home. So when we talk about safety and education, it's got to be on both ends. It just can't be, well, my son will be at home, but we're finna go out of town to Wisconsin for Thanksgiving. we all gonna be quarantined. How is that possible? So when we talk about safety and education, like Fred said, it's got to be on both sides, man. It's
Yeah, simultaneously, like I said,
simultaneously.
simultaneously.
Yeah, we and that's the hit that we get with educators. Like, so they social distance. And like you said, Fred, it's hard. Hey, they got to go home 14 days. Why? Well, what happened? Who got it? It's FERPA, man. We can't tell you. Who? So it's like, well, but you just told me you went out of town last week. So it's
And,
just a situation. Go ahead.
Hey, and you know what's so funny about that too, KD, is that, like, everything is based off economics and politics.
Mm-hmm.
This whole COVID's been political, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, on my timeline, before the election, there was a lot of people saying, COVID this, COVID that, we need to hunker down, we need to do this, that, and the third, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were adamant about that before the election. Now that the election is over, you see them at basketball games, and I'm talking about the people who are staunchly against, they're like saying, why is Trump having all these rallies? I like how Biden is doing it this way. But a month later, I see them at basketball games, filming basketball games. I mean, it's like so hypocritical. You know? It's like if you're gonna go all in, you gotta go all in. The Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, right?
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, we have to be held accountable on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna hold the parents accountable, then the teachers have to be held accountable as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, like you got to stay in the house. Like, yeah, so and that's why and that's why as a superintendent, like I said, and like the way we're doing it now, to me, it's a really good way because you got traditional and then you got virtual. Not once have y'all heard me say, now if I say I prefer we stay at home the entire semester, then I need to stay at home the entire semester. I mean, of course I got to go out and get grocery stuff like that. But if I'm really adamant about that, then okay, I need to stay at home. I shouldn't say we need to go virtual the whole time, but then I'm going on vacation to Las Vegas. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're going down to Destin, hang out. Like you said, going to Vegas. Hitting up the strip clubs. Yeah,
You definitely got to practice what you preach, mother. You can't speak on it.
So yeah, it's a slippery slope, man. It's a fine line. It is. It really is.
It's tough. And like you were saying earlier, before we even went on online, you were like, I can tell who got a fresh cut. I can tell who's been through.
I can tell who's been.
And you know what's so crazy too about it is, like, so say if we weren't doing the Zoom call, right? We were all hanging out somewhere. At first, we'll be kind of standoffish, but I'm telling you, by the end of that conversation, we'll be dapping each other up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well, I talked to him for 10 minutes. He ain't got COVID. He ain't coughing.
Well, not KD. Not KD. Not KD. KD ain't playing. KD ain't playing. He's not playing.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. In like you said, dapping it up and all. People do think that it is okay if they are dealing with you and you are distant. After that little uneasiness goes away, like, I'm like that at work. No.
Yeah.
I treat everybody like they got COVID. I think I have too much. I guess, but for I just have too much to lose by not doing it. You know what I'm saying? But this is a loaded question. It's very difficult just dealing with all this. So it's like it definitely has changed some people. And like I will never, us joking at Athens State, never foreseen this part of life happening. And we were sitting here talking about wearing masks and COVID and talking about Zoom calls, have a chat with your brothers and stuff. I mean, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, KD, I thought he was going somewhere else with that.
No, I was with him.
Oh, okay.
Now, Chad, do you know why you didn't get him? Because you always do something crazy. So you always think everybody else will do something crazy. No.
Man. Guys, I just want to thank y'all for jumping on last minute. Well, it wasn't last minute because I planned it, but you know what I mean. With the podcasting, the podcast was last minute, and you all agreeing to do it. Thank y'all, man. It just shows you what I think about y'all is true. That y'all always come through when I need y'all. So I appreciate that, man. I really do. That means a lot. It really does.
And definitely, I want you guys to come back on to the channel in the future. We don't have to just talk about education. I know you guys love sports. We can talk about sports. And I definitely want to touch on something that Fred was talking about as far as the college athletes and how they're dealing with COVID. Because for me, I feel like in 2021, if something is proven as far as the vaccines, it's going to be mandated that all college athletes take that vaccine. That's how I feel. And I believe that might take place. So there you have it, folks. The Rocket City Network. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And we out. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You got